Hey creators, Robo here and welcome back to the channel. Long time no see, I guess. Sorry it's been so long. I was stuck between so many different works in progresses that, combined with my limited time and much more limited amount of energy that I had left at the end of my days of study, it made it all a lot tougher to get stuff done in the workshop. But at least here we are. It took the full release of Side Order, my birthday, but nonetheless, we can finally show you one of the projects that we've been trying our best to get done for you guys. So, you guys better like and subscribe to see the rest of all of these works in progresses as soon as they are released. But for now, here we are with this video showing off our Side Order Pro Marina custom amiibos. But that's enough apologies for now, let's get started with the video. To start with the customization, we first have to remove a few parts from each amiibo. Starting with Pearl, I had to remove her arms, and now I'm pinning these back on in a different position. Then I add back both of her legs, but now I'm making them spread out more. Finally, for her other arm, I used the first one as a measurement of how long the wire needed to be before I added it back to the body. And finally, at the end, I also added back her hand. With the repose done, the first thing to do with the epoxy sculpt was to fill in all of the open spaces left from the customization. After that, I applied a thin sheet of clay over her original dress. This will both be a strong base to add her puffy jacket, but this will also allow me to add the texture later. Speaking of the jacket, as soon as I got these final open spots filled near her legs, it was time to add the first of the big sheets of clay around her arms. Then I work my way around the back, adding the collar first, and then the sheet for her other arm. As soon as I had removed the seam, I also pressed the end around the wrist back into itself to make the divide between her gloves and the jacket. Then it was one more big sheet of clay for her back to serve as the base of the jacket. Here I pulled the underside away from the dress to give it that more floaty effect, but smoothing out the top to fill in with the rest of the outfit, especially the arms. Then I used my X-Acto knife to cut the first of the seams into the arm, and then I'll enlarge these with my silicone tools. Having these wet will make the clay much more malleable, which is especially critical for parts like these that have already been sculpted to their final position. After I got the rest of the seams in the arms and the base of the jacket, I used my knife once more to make the first of a selection of vertical cuts. And then I add the matching horizontal ones to make a checkered pattern for Pearl's dress. Then I used a bit more clay to fill in the holes left from her crown. And lastly, I made 2 balls of clay that I added at the end of her legs to make her shoes. These are a little bit small at the moment, but later on I'll add some pieces of 2mm EVA foam clay to the soles to make them just a little bit bigger. Because, of course, a small little gremlin uses platforms. Next up was Marina, where sadly I had to remove a lot more stuff to fit her pose for the artwork. But like with Pearl, first thing we're gonna do is cover up all of those open spots that were left from the removed pieces. With Marina, we started with her tentacles, where we had removed the headband from her headset. Then we got some holes from where she was mounted to the Amiibo base. And afterwards, I fixed the shoulders, the wrists, and the hole in her chest left from the big zipper. Finally, I get to start on the legs. Firstly, I cover up the wire with a snake of clay. With those applied on both sides, we then make a very thin sheet of clay that I next sculpt onto her hips. After we had smoothed out the hips, I then followed this up with the sculpting of her heels. To make it a little bit easier on myself and not have like a wiggling little bit at the end of the heel, I already decided to make the heel with a bamboo skewer later. But this is still something I need to keep in mind as I sculpt the raised platform and also the pointed ends of the shoe. Here I also used my silicone tool to add the divide between where the pants end and where the shoe begins. And with a little bit of touch-ups from a little bit too firm of a grip on the rest of the leg, I can also do the same for the open part of the heels. After giving her a little bit more ass back, I used a thin snake of clay to make the seam between her belly and where the pants begin. Then I smoothed this back up to where the original sculpt ended. And after doing the same thing on the other leg, I make a big but thin sheet of clay and I add this to Marina's back. Then I slowly work my way back to the front of the figure to make her flowing blouse. Here I again need to pose it in a very floaty way, but here I also try to use as much of the original sculpt as possible. So I only need to add clay to where it differentiates between the blouse and the top underneath. And as soon as we get to add the collar, we've also finished Marina sculpting. Starting with both skin tones, with a light peach for Pearl and a brown skin tone for Marina. After we got enough layers for those, I started to work my way from the deepest parts of the amiibo onto the most open, which meant starting with Marina's top with a black, including her fingerless gloves. For Pearl, I had already added a tiny strip of red for her mouth, but the color after that will be white. Not because it's in the deepest part of the amiibo, but more so because the jacket is such a huge part of the amiibo, it's gonna need to be perfect, which meant that it's gonna require a lot of layers. But now I can just keep adding layers between the application of the other colors. So after this white comes a layer of blue for the underside of her dress. As for Marina, her next color is going to be orange for the base of her suit. So both the blouse, although not on the inside, and her pants. Then back to pearl with a dark purple for the inside of her jacket. Add a deep blue for her leggings. After that, it was time for some more black, with us first adding a tiny edge around the sole of Pearl's shoes. And now it was time to use it as a base for her golden dress. Here we have to make extra sure that we get the black paint in all of the little crevices that we had made for the texture of the dress, while avoiding all of the whites that we just applied to the jacket. Yeah, and I had also promised that I would upload at least once a month, despite my internship. At least now we can use the black for Pearl's fingerless gloves too. And even her eye mask. And she gets the same deep blue for the underside of her blouse. And the bottom of her heels. But now I can finally add the golds to Pearl's dress. And also the sides of her soles. As well as the base of the zipper, with that little tiny brush of ours. The same tiny brush is then also used to add a grey to the cushions of Marina's headset. After which I add a plate metal to the rest of her headset. Although, after looking at it for a little bit, I did not like how little you saw the zipper. So I used a strip of 2mm craft foam and my smallest scalpel to cut out the strip for the oversized zipper. And even used one of Pearl's original zippers on the end. But once we have these nice and metallic, we next use a little bit of that orange from Marina's suit and add it to the creases of Pearl's jacket. Although only on the arms though. After that were a lot of details that were just too finicky to add on camera. Like these painted details on the badge on Pearl's right arm. And even these shoelaces that I made from sewing wire. At least now we can show these off while we also add the light grey shadow to give the impression of a tongue with the shoes. Then with a little pencil line to trace, I used a white to make Pearl's eyelids. Finally completing the expression of this little gremlin. All the while I have been grinding away on Marina's suit with all of these bright orange zigzags that I had to apply all over the suit. And with all over the suit, I mean all over the suit. I had to consider so many curves for this part of the paint job. But in the end, it does give an amazing characteristic to this amiibo. With most of the clothes now done, I finally have enough space to start on the tentacles for both characters. Starting with a barbarian skin tone mixed with a mummy's robes for a bit of a warmer tone for Pearl's tentacles. As for Marina, she got a base coat of a dark brown for her tentacles, up to about the halfway point. And speaking of halfway point, this is then where the project sat, for literal months. Like, here. So, here. The last recording date was September 2nd of 2023. I wanted to have this done for so long, but so many other projects just came in between with a lot more priority. Then came the internship, and now it's April 1st, 2024. So let's jump right back with a new set of deep blue for the other half of Marina's tentacles. But I first wanted to make a little bit of progress on Marina's face. So after I'd already applied a grey and a turquoise mix onto her eyebrows, I then drew on where I wanted to have her eyes face. And I started to outline it with a bluish turquoise. I also added a pink gradient to the tips of Pearl's tentacles. And with the gradients done for Marina, I can now start to apply a mummy's robes for the underside of her tentacles. While those dry, I also added the spots of bright pink to Pearl's gradient. While those both now need to rest, I can at least unpack both amiibo bases that I'd also airbrush the colors onto. With not really much changing for Pearl's base, although I still wanted the shades of pink to be the same, so airbrush it is. But with Marina's new ink colors, those also need to be reflected into the base. But then, let's turn this error of mine of accidentally covering up these little spots of ink into a happy little accident, with me mixing up a dragon's red and a black with the first appearance of a splotch of gelatin ink, fitting for Marina's base. But as soon as Marina's dry again, I add some more mummy's robes onto her suction cups. And I also add the gradient of deep blue onto her fingertips. And on top of that, I also add the normal turquoise to her iris. Then finally we can get back to Pearl with her fancy new glasses. So after I'd already traced the pattern onto this little piece of sticky note, I then cut it out and stuck it onto this plastic sheet that I'd airbrushed with a transparent orange paint. Now I just need to cut out the shape and also add the hole for Pearl's nose. Once I had those cut out, I bent it a little bit using a lighter, and now we can dry fit it onto the amiibo. And it seems to look good. And the transparency is also looking good enough. So we can get out the super glue and first place some onto the left side of Pearl's head. Then I hold the glasses in place and apply the accelerator. As soon as that is set, I then carefully add the super glue to the other side of the glasses and press these in place. And with a little bit more accelerator, I get the glasses in position. But that's not the only accessory for Pearl. I also have this microphone for her. Since her pose is also inspired by this piece of artwork, where she's singing while holding onto her microphone. So I also wanted to reflect that into the amiibo. And lastly, we got our crown. At first I just wanted to use her old crown covered with some chrome gold. But you can clearly see that the new crown is a lot thinner and more cylindrical than the old one. So I tried to make one using some 2mm EVA foam, but the foam texture was still too clearly visible. But finally, I got these thin PVC tubes that were perfect for making the new crown, using a Dremel and a very sharp knife. So I got to glue this on and finish the assembly of Pearl. As for Marina, I also had these wires going around her headset glued on while I was working on Pearl. But before we can finish those, I first wanted to add the infinity symbol onto her pupils with some barbarian flesh. Now for that headset, luckily it's not that much. Just a few layers of plate metal for the plugs on the ends and the spacers between the wires. And lastly, these wires themselves get a small touch up with a coat of orange, since, I don't know, the copper just doesn't come out as well as I would like. And now for the thing that will link all of our side order amiibos together. For the gloss varnish that we usually apply to the tentacles and ink, we wanted to add some glitter to the gloss, because this is also reflected in the ink that you shoot during your climb of the Spiral of Order. So we also wanted to reflect this into our custom amiibos. Stuff like the ink on Marina's base, same as Pearl's. And as for the characters themselves, this glittery varnish is then also applied to the parts of their tentacles that are the same color as the ink. So for Pearl, all of her pink radiance. After this all had a chance to dry, we still needed to apply the normal gloss varnish to the tentacles, Pearl's glasses, and her eyebrows. As for Marina, I also still needed to cover up the rest of her tentacles. Same as the wires on her headset, her eyebrows, her eyes themselves, her mouth, and her fingertips. Lastly, for Pearl's jacket, I did not want to make it fully glossy, but I also didn't like the cocky finish that we usually get with our miniature paints. So I applied a matte varnish to give a nice middle ground between gloss and no varnish at all. Finally, we cut these metal supports to size and drill some matching holes into the ink on the base. And with a little bit more super glue and accelerator, we glue both Pearl and Marina in their floating poses onto the ink. And with that, we've finally finished our side order Pearl and Marina custom amiibos. I had literally forgotten how good it feels to finally finish a project. I have been stuck between so many unfinished projects for so long that I really needed this reminder of how nice it feels to finally be able to finish something. And most importantly, we now also get to show it off to you guys. So, what do you think? Hopefully it was worth the wait to finally be able to see one of our custom amiibos again. Who am I kidding? To make it worth how long you guys had to wait, it might as well have been another Octobot already. But since we finally got out of that slog of not finishing a project, and with how far we've already gotten with the other projects that we had prepped, you shouldn't have to wait as long for the next video. Ah, very funny. No, with how much we've got prepped, you guys might even be able to see a new video in as soon as 2 weeks from now, like our usual schedule. But sadly I can't promise that, but we will try our utter best to make it happen. So, we hope to see all of you guys then, and as always, keep those creative gears turning, and we will see you guys in the next video.